Today we're going to talk about fractions. And I know it is probably something that you have struggled with potentially since the beginning of your math years. And I get it. And I tell the story every year that my dad told me I could never be a math teacher because I couldn't do fractions. So I remember being in your shoes, and all I can tell you is that sometimes it takes a good teacher to get you to the point where you understand fractions. Sometimes it takes a maturity level that you gain as you get older, and sometimes it just takes practice. Yes, I'm talking about practice. So we are going to do a lot of equations with fractions, and I'm going to go through these and explain the best way to approach them. The hard part with fractions is there's lots of different ways. That's one of the things that's true about algebra in general, is there's a lot of different ways to approach this stuff. I'm going to show you what I think is the easiest. So here we go. When I see any problem that has fractions in it, the first thing I'm going to think is, I don't want fractions. So when I see this example 1, you have a couple choices. You could add 4 to both sides and go from there. But I'm going to suggest that every time we see an equation with fractions, we immediately try to do what I call clear the fraction. Get rid of it, because then you have a nice, easy equation to work with. But there are tricks when clearing a fraction. So here's what I mean by clearing a fraction. I want to multiply my whole equation, both sides, right? Because everything I do to one side, I have to do to the other. I want to multiply both sides of my equation by a number that will make all of the denominators cancel out. So today we're just going to be dealing with somewhat simple fractions, somewhat simple equations. If you look down, all of our equations have only one fraction in them. So today's going to be pretty easy. Tomorrow we'll advance a little bit and we'll have equations that maybe have 2 fractions in them. So for today, we have an equation that has a fraction in it, 1/2. I want to multiply both sides of this equation. I'm going to put brackets just to remind myself what I'm doing. I want to multiply both sides by whatever number will make this fraction reduce, this denominator cancel out. So that number in this case is going to be the number 2. I want to multiply both sides of my equation by 2. So when I multiply by 2, on this left side, 2 has to multiply by 1/2a, and 2 has to multiply by this -4. Okay, well, what's 2 times 1/2? You have a fraction. You are allowed to use it. 2 times 1/2 is 1. 2 times 4 is 8. And on the other side, 2 times 18 is 36. Now we have a really easy equation to work with. So this is what I'm going to suggest for all of these, is to do what we call clearing the fraction. So multiply both sides by 2, and I'm good to go. I'm going to add 8, and I'm going to get a equals 44. Okay, over here, I've got a fraction. Instead of totally freaking out, I'm going to multiply both sides of this fraction, or of this equation, by 9, so that the denominator of this fraction will cancel. Every term has to get multiplied, so 9 times 11 is 99. 9 times 5/9. Well, use a calculator, you may, or let's start to try to do some of this in our head. Well, 9 times 5/9. The 9s are going to cancel and leave me just with -5x. Just because the 9 cancels with this term doesn't mean it cancels and now I only have -51. The full 9 has to multiply by the 11, by the 5/9, and by the 51. Each term gets multiplied by the 9. So I have 51 times 9 is -459. Okay, now I have an equation just like I would have had before. Subtract 99 from both sides. Have -5x equals, I really don't want to do that. I have written down, there we go, haha, I have it in pencil, -558. Divide both sides by by -5. And I get x equals, well, that's not fun, but it's okay. I can have a fraction as my answer. So negative divided by a negative is a positive. And you can leave this, if it doesn't reduce, which 558 over 5 is not going to reduce, I can leave this as an improper fraction. That's fine. All right, example 3, same thing. I would push pause and try example